Good morning. Who's my mic tech here? This mic is not to my. I'm going to have to stoop down here to talk on this mic unless I hold it. So I think I'll hold it because my stooping down is really not the look we're going for here this morning, I don't think. Welcome. Hi, everybody. I'm Mindy Tate, CEO of Franklin Tomorrow, and welcome to the January 9th Frank Talks. Let's talk about it civilly. So I want to ask everybody, we kind of threw you a curveball this morning. You came in and you had to sit down perhaps next to someone you didn't know. Who met somebody new today? Yay! Did you introduce yourselves? Did you do this thing where you go, "Hi, I'm Mindy Tate. Nice to meet you, Matt."
Matt Brown. So nice to meet you,
Nice to
Mindy.
meet you. Nice to meet you. That's the point. A little bit, oh yeah, I don't have to pay for that. Sorry, it's not a political announcement. But so glad you're here this morning and so glad that you're going to have the opportunity to learn about how we can all have civil discourse and talk to each other civilly. But the first way is to know somebody's name. Shake their hand, put a face and a name together. I really believe that if we know more people, we can know more people. And so I'm excited about this morning. But I'm also excited this morning. Many of you know and have participated in Franklin Tomorrow's Exemplary Community Volunteer Awards, which are in November now, every year. And this past year, one of our winning organizations was Backlight Productions. And they are a great group. And I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Smith to introduce you all tell you a little bit about Backlight, and then introduce our special guest and performer, Sam Mack. So,
Thank you, Mindy, and thank you all for having us here today. My name is Melissa, and I'm the executive director here at Backlight Productions. We are a nonprofit here in town, a theater arts program for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And what we do at Backlight is we offer classes in the arts, in music, in theater, and dance, as well as high-quality performance opportunities that feature people with disabilities in leading roles, while professionals in our area then come and perform alongside them using their gifts to put someone else into the spotlight. And so we asked Mindy if we could talk with you all today, because one of our missions for this year was to make sure that our community knows who we are, what we do, and that we're here. And so we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary, and right now we offer about 6 different classes, have about 50 students in our program, and we have some really exciting performance opportunities coming up that we would love for you all to be able to attend, because the best way that you can support our organization is simply by attending our shows. You see, our audience members are a vital part to what we do, because by having an active and lively and encouraging audience, we then can give the support to our actors who are doing something that requires a lot of courage to do for anybody. And so upcoming this year, we have in Memorial Day weekend, we are going to be performing Beauty and the Beast at the Nashville Children's Theater. That will be in May, and it will feature about 50 different artists with disabilities in that show. But in just a couple of weeks, we will be performing Singing in the Rain at the Franklin Theater, and that'll feature about 10 of our more advanced actors who want to take on a challenge. Because what we usually do is we break up roles into smaller parts where we have multiple people playing the same role. In this way, we can cast more people into leading roles, and we can give them just the amount that they can handle. But what we've learned is that we have some students who can handle a lot, and they're ready for more of a challenge. And so this production of Singing in the Rain that's coming up, it's going to feature about 10 of our students, and they're going to be playing some of the full roles, the same stuff the people on Broadway and at TPAC are performing. They're going to do it. And we would love to see you all there. The performance on the 28th is going to be a fundraiser performance, which is going to be more of an immersive experience where there's going to be drink tickets and desserts and people can come in costumes. And the minute that you walk up to the theater, you're going to be in 1920s Hollywood as the show takes place all around you. The next day, that performance is going to be the same show, but without all the freebies and bells and whistles of the night before. And so I've invited here today one of our students, Sam Mack. And Sam is actually playing the role of Cosmo Brown in our production of Singing in the Rain, the whole entire thing. And we gave him this role because we casted him last year as Lord Farquaad. He was the second one. And we realized really quickly, after only a few weeks, he already knew all of his lines, that he was ready to do so much more. And so he's going to give you a little taste of what our performance of Singing in the Rain is going to be like and perform for you all Make 'em Laugh, along with one of our backlight instructors, Peter Horica, filling in for the role of Don Lockwood. Oh, you're great. Okay, we'll do it now.
Okay, thank you all for being here today, folks. So I'm very excited for this performance. I've been acting since the 6th grade. I did the plays, and then they stopped acting. They went back into acting when I did Shrek Jr. I was Donkey Tuna. I was Eddie Murphy Flair, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so he's been acting since the 6th grade, and you're going to see how far he's come today. Here we go.
Pick up this brochure or one of their cards so you can take that with you and consider going to their performances later this month at the Franklin Theater. So what a great way to kick off the morning, huh? Make them laugh. Okay, so now we've met new people. The whole theme of that song is make them laugh. So let's have a great time this morning. And I'll invite Nancy Conway to come up and do her Did You Know real quickly.
Thank you, Mindy. And another round of applause for Backlight Productions. Weren't they absolutely super great? And to think that they're right here in this community. Oh, gee. But just as a little few words regarding our quiz question today. Theater and productions have been a strong part in the life of Franklin and Williamson County for many years. So some years ago, a BGA student and some of his friends decided to perform Thornton Wilde's Our Town. And then they went to different locations around Franklin because at the time they did not have a theater home. So they were here, there, and yonder. And they finally settled on 2nd Avenue South, and you know it as Pull Tight Theater. So this Pull Tight Players started in Franklin, Tennessee, and they're still here today. So are you ready for the quiz question? And Mindy, what's the gift? A hat. Okay. The quiz question is, what year did Pull Tight Players begin?
Somebody raise their hand. Anybody? Take a guess. 1947. No, ma'am. 1964?
Not correct.
Somebody else? Okay.
Who said 1968?
Nobody.
They tied, but somebody did say.
Somebody did say it in the back, but y'all split the hat. You can, one can wear it one day, the other another day. So, great stuff here this morning. We want to thank, of course, our partners in presenting Frank Talks monthly, and those include Renaissance Bank, our presenting partner, and our sustaining partners, Atmos Energy and Williamson Medical Center. And so we appreciate that. And Williamson Medical Center, Greg Brory is here. Greg, do you have any introduction to this video or?
Thank you. Good morning. Happy and healthy New Year from our 2,000 colleagues at Williamson Medical Center. I've got some exciting news, but you'll have to come to breakfast with the mayors to hear it. So stay tuned. Meanwhile, we've got a great video here from one of our new providers, Bethany Malone, over at our Downs Boulevard facility, and she'd like to talk to you a little bit about herself.
My granddad was one of the first physicians in our small town. However, he was also a diabetic, so he let us give him insulin injections when we were young. The fact that it was in my family and the fact that I can help people and the fact that I get to know people and get to know my patients and can see a difference in their life has always made a big difference to me, and that's just something I wanted to do. And I love it when I see a patient, maybe 4 weeks later and they come back and they're like, that made a huge difference. I'm so much better than I was, or this has totally changed my life. It makes you feel good. You're like, yes, I've accomplished, I've helped, I've made a difference in someone's life, because that's really what our job's about. I was thrilled when they had an opening here. I love the community aspect of it. This has truly been one of the best places that I've ever worked. Everyone's so kind. They truly want the best for you, and they're all supportive. When I'm not working, I enjoy spending time with my husband. We don't have kids yet, so we have 3 dogs. We also have a boat, so we enjoy going out on the lake. We bought a 1960s renovator home. It needs a lot of work, but we have done a lot of it. We mostly renovated the kitchen. We have a lot more to do, but we're slowing down the process because it is exhausting after a while. But it's been fun. It's been a fun experience. You definitely get closer when you renovate a home.
And if you don't know, this facility is on Downs Boulevard near the Walgreens. It's also a place, if you have to have blood drawn at Williamson Medical Center, you can go there and not have to go to the hospital. Trust me, that's a nice thing, because it's a challenge. So we appreciate that. We also really have had a great year with Renaissance Bank. And Tony, Tony or Tina, y'all going to introduce this, or will it be self-explanatory? If you drive a Tesla, you'll get this one. Okay. If it were made in the South, okay. If a Tesla were made in the South.
Hi there, I'm your self-driving assistant. Where are you headed?
Take me home, please.
Sure thing. You want to get there faster than a hot knife through butter or a sneeze through a screen door?
Sneeze through a screen door.
Y'all hold on.
The butter one. Do the butter one.
Neighbor, spotted. Would you like to stop and chat?
No, I'm kind of in a hurry.
Shooting the breeze mode activated.
Hey, Jim.
How's your mom and them? Raindrops detected. Slowing us down to 15 miles per hour.
It's just a sprinkle.
This could get nasty. Activating emergency flashers.
Oh, come on.
Approaching 4-way stop. Yielding the right-of-way. After you. After you. After you. After you.
We're kind of holding things up here.
We're in no hurry, sweetie. Always good to be polite. After you. After you. After you. After you. Engage in backroads navigation.
Shouldn't we be taking the interstate?
At this hour? Shoot, no. I know a shortcut. Recalculating. Recalculating.
We're lost, aren't
Recalculating. Oh no, just need to get my bearings is all. Probably just missed a turn somewhere.
Let me just put on the navigation.
Don't you dare touch that. I don't need it.
Sorry.
Where can I take you?
Take me to the grocery store. I gotta get some bread and milk before the snow gets bad.
Snow? Conditions too hazardous. Shutting down.
Brought to you by Renaissance Rewards Extra, the checking account that checks all the boxes.
Let's hope we don't see any of that four-letter word snow anytime soon. So thank you to Lion Leadership Group, our coffee sponsor. Lion Leadership is the new franchisee for McDonald's here in Williamson County and across Middle Tennessee. And so we appreciate their continued support in providing breakfast. As I mentioned, we appreciate all of our partners, Renaissance Bank, our presenting partner, and Williamson Medical Center and Atmos Energy, our sustaining partners. So this morning, who knew it? We're going to talk about talking, but we're going to talk about talking civilly. We're going to talk about civil discourse. I'd love to invite my panelists to come up and join us. Now, David Plazas from the Tennessean, the Opinions and Engagement Director for USA Today Network in Tennessee. Ron Hetty he's the Blue Co-Chair for the Nashville Braver Angels organization, and Kalinda Fisher, who's founder and executive director of the Great Reset, founded right here in Franklin, Tennessee, but national now. So we will put these people together, and I'm going to give them the clicker, which is always a good thing to give, and I'm going to bring you the microphone. And you can take it off the stand if you like and pass it. So we're going to start with David. We're going to start with David and talk about Civility Tennessee. And I guess in a way, David, you travel across the state and you meet people who are interested in this topic and who are promoting trying to have civil discourse and civility in our community. What's the state of the state here in Tennessee?
Hello, can you hear me now? There we go. Sorry, I'm David Plazas, the Opinion and Engagement Director for USA Today Network Tennessee and the Tennessean. I'm based in Nashville, but my work takes me all across the state, as Mindy said, and actually last year had a chance to be part of and organize several events, several congressional and gubernatorial forums that took me to Memphis, Martin, Pulaski, to Chattanooga, to Knoxville, to McMinnville, and really get a sense of this beautiful, beautiful state. And it's gorgeous. If you've had a chance recently to go across it, you see the diversity of our state, and at the same time, you see the hospitality of our people. And that car commercial was perfect because there was a lot of that I heard as well in terms of some of the expressions that you might hear. But Civility Tennessee is a campaign that started, and I credit Michael Anastasi, who's our editor of the Tennessean, with really convincing me to do it, because I thought that civility was impossible in this era, and he said, nope, we got to try harder. If we're not going to do it, who's going to do it? And in fact, I agree wholeheartedly with it today. 5 years later, we have a campaign which we've been lecturing about statewide and also across different states, and we're talking about what civility is and also what it isn't. So here's the big question. Why can't we disagree in public? People are very much concerned about saying something that might get them, shall we say, canceled, right? You know, that's something people hear a lot. That's a big conversation. There was just an article in the New York Times over the weekend of a professor who showed a particular artwork and was fired for it. There's all sorts of fears of what can we say and what can't we say in public. And the reality is we need to have spaces where we can discuss things respectfully. And respectfully means that we shirk from conversations, but rather we respect the people that we're with. Just like you did this morning to say good morning to everybody and have the opportunity just to get to know each other. This is one of the most beautiful things about this challenge, and it's one of the most difficult things. We've become so tribalistic in our politics that we have forgotten that we're human beings who have many, many similarities when it comes to values. My family, my parents and up, were all from rural areas. I was born in an urban center. And so we start to recognize that we have a lot more similarities than we think of. And two of the things that I love the most that bring people together are food and the arts. So today's presentation was really important, to make us laugh, those things that make us laugh and bring us together. So as we were starting to think about what this meant, what is civility, we saw this as a real challenge. But we said this has to be not just from a standpoint of saying, well, somebody else has to do it, or the top, religious or political leader have to do it. No, we have to do it. We have to be the role models that we want to be if we want to make that change. Because if we're not willing to do it, who's going to do it? Why would they do it? Unless we're willing to say and take that risk today, I'm willing to act in a way that I would like others to emulate. I've had this rule for a long, long time that has served me well. It was by luck initially, is that I'm going to be the same person on Twitter as I am at the grocery store. So when you approach me, I'm going to approach you in a hospitable manner. I'll be respectful, do my best to engage you. And if you're trolling me, I'm probably going to head out the doors. So this was the genesis of Civility Tennessee, and it builds upon our mission as an editorial board. And the editorial board is made up of editors of the Tennessean. We defend the First Amendment and freedom of information. That's pretty obvious. We've done that for a long time. The freedom of the press is one of the core 5 values in the First Amendment. We amplify the voices of underrepresented people. There are a lot of people whose voices weren't heard or we didn't allow to be heard for many decades, and we're really making a concerted effort to make sure that we invite people, whether you might be someone who's conservative and have certain views of the media, or whether you might be someone in an underrepresented community who may feel your needs have been ignored for years, such as the Afro-American community, the Latino community, et cetera. We welcome a diversity of opinions, and this can get us in trouble a little bit because we do really believe in having a platform where we can invite both the leader of the House of Representatives and also an activist at the grassroots level. It's really important, and if we can be the platform, or rather, if we're not the platform for those voices, who will be, as people further and further get more polarized? But this final one was a little bit difficult. It was kind of easy years ago. We stand for civility. What does that mean? Is it to be polite? Is it to be courteous? Yes, but it's far more than that. It really is about taking a stand and being brave. And back in 2017, this was going to be the first Thanksgiving of a new presidential administration, and we started asking readers, what is it you are going to talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner table? A lot of people had unfriended each other. A lot of people had become really nasty to each other, and you saw the pundits on cable television. And 3 of the big takeaways that we heard from readers were these: challenge your own views, don't start unnecessary fights, and politicians, although you can apply it to any leader, they need to model civility. So we have to hold our leaders to a higher standard when it comes to how they behave. Because if this isn't behavior that you would model for your children, your nieces and nephews, the people who you're teaching, why would they follow that, right, if you're going to be nasty? So the timeline of Civility Tennessee, it started, as I mentioned, in November of 2017. We've had numerous events, debates, forums. We've had, I have a picture, don't mean to embarrass Michael, but he did a great job of moderating 2 events to show that we really do care about hearing a diversity of thought. He had a forum with Governor Lee, a Q&A at University of Tennessee, Knoxville, back in May of 2022. This was during the gubernatorial election, and also with Democratic opponent Jason Martin at the offices of the Tennessean. We do truly believe in having ideas out there that people can discuss and debate, and helping guide these conversations in a way that are respectful. But we've also had a lot of community partners, and so I have to credit Franklin Tomorrow. We've been to many events over the last several years, and you've been an amazing leader in making sure that we can be in the same space together. But those partners have also included universities like Vanderbilt, Belmont, Lipscomb, the National Public Library, and we hope to do a lot more partnerships this year. We'll have some special things coming up about the national mayoral election. We also do a lot of virtual engagement. Even before the pandemic emerged, we were doing Facebook Lives and other things to engage people on very tough issues, including how do you discuss racism? How do you discuss guns and gun violence if you have different opinions in the Second Amendment? How do you discuss the Me Too movement? And we've had experts who could really help us facilitate those conversations. So you may have heard this conversation, this phrase here last week quite a bit. Do you remember what happened last week? Anybody remember? So there was a election for the Speaker of the House, for the 55th Speaker of the House, who is now Kevin McCarthy. But it gave us a little bit of nerves at time. But this, I've had this on a slide for a long time, far before this past week. The person who inspired it for me was former Governor Bill Haslam. We were at an event where he was answering questions about his higher education policy back in 2018 at the National Public Library, and we had protesters come and disrupt the event. And he answered questions, and he was very courteous, and he was very forthright. And when he left, he looked at me and said, "David, democracy's messy." And he went off, and this was just a reality that sometimes things aren't, all plain and simple. So what isn't civility? I remember when I came, I'm not from the South, you may have noticed, but I remember hearing for the first time, "Bless your heart." I'm like, what does that mean? It can be a good thing, I found out. It can be a good thing, but it can sometimes not be a good thing. But, but fake niceness, avoiding those hard conversations, this is an example of that. And the picture that I have is actually a 10-year-old picture from the Tennessean archives of the Grassmere, this troll island. And, we have a lot of trolls. We have people who are doxing people, who are trying to embarrass and humiliate people. And I think that everybody makes mistakes. You make mistakes, you're kind of say something that you probably didn't mean to say, and where are those avenues for forgiveness and discussion where we can redeem ourselves if we truly are really sincere about having those significant conversations and what Greg Jones, the new president of Belmont University, calls meaningful disagreements. The last one, actually, let me go back one moment. Impugning the dignity of people. This is something that's really important to us and that we've discussed for many, many years. When we have letters to the editor or guest opinion columns that come, we want people to have their say, but if they're going to put down somebody or reduce somebody's humanity to a subhuman level, we don't have to publish that, and we're not going to, because we do believe in elevating voices, but not at the expense of dismissing people's humanity. And then finally, we've had a lot of things that have come out of these efforts. And Mindy, I've embarrassed you there by putting your face right there on the slide. But she was a wonderful guest of the Tennessee Voices podcast that I've been hosting since March of 2020. We've had 329 episodes to date, and they've been conversations with community leaders about what they're doing, what they're thinking about, and how do we navigate this new world that we're in. We might be out of the pandemic now, but this is still a very different world than what it was in January of 2020 or February of 2020. And we've also created these campaigns called Black Tennessee Voices and Latino Tennessee Voices that started off as newsletters and Facebook campaigns and guest opinion columns, and they turned into live events last year in partnership with the National Museum of African American Music and also Plaza Mariachi in South Nashville. So they were opportunities for community people to tell a story about themselves and connect further. Tell them who am I? I'm not just an architect. I'm not just a politician, not just a judge. I'm someone who has a history, and we can all learn from that. So this picture over here is actually from a mall in Vienna, Virginia. My brother lives there. I was there over the Christmas holiday, and I was really impressed by it, this whole notion of humanity, enrich community, be civil. I think it goes very much in line with what you see here on this tablecloth for Franklin Tomorrow. And we ask you, now, are you in? The question is, can you pledge to be civil? Even when you disagree with someone else, can you model behavior that you want others to emulate? Will you hold yourself accountable and your community accountable? Sometimes it's hard to tell someone that you like or someone in your circle, you're wrong. We need to fix this. And finally, create spaces to discuss tough issues. Sometimes people have minimized the whole notion of safe spaces, and the reality is that there's a lack of safety sometimes in public spaces. But sometimes people need spaces where they can just talk about things in an intimate way, where they're not feeling attacked and where they can understand, oh, I didn't know this about this other person. I didn't know this about this other community. And that's the way that we build a better community. So remember, democracy is counting on you. Want to thank you so much for your time, and I'll pass it over to Ron.
Great, thank you so much. I'm reminded of a quote I saw this morning and that stuck with me. Before this, it reminded me of this quote. If you can't be kind, at least be vague. And that was Miss Manners speaking. So I think, don't directly attack someone, but there is no need for fake niceness. And David, that was very interesting. But if you can't be kind, at least be vague. So Ron Hetty with Braver Angels. And this is a program new to me. But several of our board members have participated in the past. Franklin Tomorrow board members have participated. And so as we talked about civility, it seemed this would be a great way to talk across the political divide. And so, Ron, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good morning. It's good to be back in Franklin. I taught in Williamson County Schools for about 15 years. As you can tell from looking at me, that was a little bit ago, but I still have fond memories of my time here. I am representing the organization Braver Angels, but I do want to say, after listening to David, ditto, there was nothing in his presentation that I could disagree with. And I was interested because the topic for today, as I noticed on the slides when we came in, was talking about civility. But what Braver Angels does is try to provide opportunities for people to actually speak civilly. If you think for a minute about the last time you encountered a political policy you disagreed with, Might have been this morning, might have been last week. There have been a few things that have happened in Williamson County in the last year that may have aroused some of your emotions. And think about the things that you started saying to yourself. Maybe the internal arguments you started having. Maybe you started to, as David said at the end of his speech, don't do this. Maybe you started demeaning some of the people who think differently than you do. Maybe you had phrases running through your mind like, what kind of idiot would think that? Or whoever thought that we needed to spend more money on schools? So the Braver Angels came out of that kind of conversation that actually started after the 2016 election. So at the very end of 2016, after the election, a group of people met in New Lebanon, Ohio. 10 Trump voters and 11 Clinton voters got together to see if they could actually sit together for a day and talk to one another respectfully. What came out of that day was not only did they do that, but they ended up liking each other, and that led to the formation of this organization with the mission of bringing Americans together to bridge the partisan divide and strengthen our democratic republic. As David said at the end of his, this is all about preserving our country. But we have to be able to do that in a respectful and a civil way. That is sometimes translated into the mission of depolarizing America, which you might think is just a pretty aspirational vision. But that is what this organization has been about ever since. We started off with the name of Better Angels, inspired by the phrase from Lincoln's Gettysburg first inaugural address. And anybody who finds the mistake on this slide will get the same prize as was offered at the beginning in that particular quiz. So after that initial meeting in New Lebanon, there was a bus tour that went across the country, stopping in various cities, piloting these opportunities. Nashville was one of those cities, and out of that came the first Tennessee Alliance here in Nashville. Over time, as this organization became more and more prominent and gained respect, a little problem arose. If any of you ever watched any of the public television documentaries, you'll probably notice somewhere along the line that one of the presenters and supporters, it's always the Better Angels Society. And at the beginning of this, Better Angels was just a little group, but as it became to have more and more prominence in the country, the Better Angels Society approached Better Angels and said, you know, we might have some confusion here. It was a very amicable conversation, and out of it all came the decision to change our name. And as David said just a minute ago, it is really time for people to take a stand to be brave. And so that's what led to the new name of Braver Angels. You will still see Better Angels referred to at various places along the way. People who bought the original set of sweatshirts and coffee cups you'll see Better Angels all over the place. But we are now officially known as Braver Angels. We started off with a series of workshops, and all of that was severely challenged by the pandemic when everything was switched over to doing things virtually. As the organization continued to grow, we've ended up now with about 11,000 members nationally. There are alliances in almost all of the states, but it still remains a citizen-led organization, very much like yours. And the idea at every level of the organization is that there has to be balance. So there is always a red and a blue person who is leading that particular level. So I am the blue co-chair in the Nashville area Braver Angels. I have a red co-chair. At the state level, we have a red and a blue state coordinator. At the national level, we have a red and a blue. The original founders of the organization, one is the red, who is president of a philanthropic society in New York. The liberal, or the blue, is a professor of family sciences at the University of Minnesota. So we had both rural and urban represented there too. So what do we do? Well, The idea is to bring people together for conversation. So it's somewhat more structured than the opportunities that David described, but we really do create settings in which people can come and talk to one another in a civil fashion. So we have built a lot of local alliances across the country. We now have 3 in Tennessee. We have the Nashville Area Alliance, which includes Williamson County, by the way. We also have one in East Tennessee and a new one in Memphis. These are started all over the place as people become interested and are willing to participate in local events. When you get involved in Braver Angels, you are asked to identify as red or blue. Originally, that was just a way of identifying the basic political philosophy that you hold, conservative or liberal. As we began to move, people said, well, they weren't so comfortable with that, and they wanted to be purple. So that became an opportunity. And then the next statement was somebody just went to be other. So now you have a lot of opportunities to identify yourself, as Mindy said, by being vague. But the idea is always somewhere in your core is you lean one way or the other. And that's now the way we generally approach people. Are you leaning red or are you leaning blue? Because in order to have these conversations, there has to be a starting point, and each of us has to face that. So one of our newest initiatives in this whole approach of understanding balance is to look at things at all levels, local, state, and national level. And we have some new ideas that are actually being piloted with elected politicians. In several different states, legislators themselves have participated in what we call red-blue workshops or red-blue conversations. We have attempted to set some of those up here in Tennessee. Most of our work is done in terms of workshops. This is how the organization began. And all of these workshops are started off in person, then were conducted virtually, and they were places where people, first of all, could review. We always say teach, but it always comes down to reviewing, because these elements of good conversation are things that we all know. But as all musicians and athletes know, with all the skills that you have, every now and then it's very important to pull one out, isolate it, and practice it. Because in the heat of the moment, you lose track sometimes of what's going to be effective. So our workshops have been based on the idea of talking to one another in a civil fashion. And I'll talk about some of those workshops in just a minute. But they are, I have called them safe and structured environments. The idea is for every person to be able to come, first of all, to leave feeling that you heard what someone else had to say, but equally important, that you leave feeling that you were also heard. We do not seek to change anybody's mind. We do not seek compromise. What we are seeking is understanding, and can we find some place of common ground? Because if we can't find any common ground, we really can't think about how to move forward from any one place. So all of the workshops, regardless of the specific topic or the purpose of that particular workshop, is based on that idea of people saying what's in your heart and what's on your mind. You're not representing a group or an organization, so that we are talking to one another. We have done a lot of work with local organizations, with faith-based groups. I've spoken, and my Red co-chair has also spoken at numerous churches, including Brentwood Methodist, several different times. This is an example of my commitment. 6:30 Thursday morning, I'm with the Methodist men. But we have also spoken at other churches. We've spoken at other civic groups. My co-chair, Deborah, has appeared at some of the Rotary clubs here in Williamson. One of our other Williamson County leaders, Beth Mallow, who is a sleep specialist, became very involved in this organization and then has become a leader actually in partnering with Citizens Climate Lobby. So the approaches of Braver Angels, matched with the goals of Citizens Climate Lobby, have moved that organization a little bit forward. We also have a lot of educational works. I've been forgetting to use the clicker here. But we reach out to do opportunities like this one, just to let people know who we are and what we do. This fall, my wife and I did a 3-week session with a group of senior citizens at Binghamton in New York. And all of this has been very inspirational and very much a pleasure for me. As a moderator of workshops, especially during Zoom, I had the opportunity at one point to be moderating a workshop from my kitchen in Nashville. My Zoom partner was in North Carolina. The participant managers, one was in Montana, really, and another one was in California. And we had participants that were everywhere from Texas through New Hampshire. So this is how the organization has spread and done its work. The workshops are all based on using effective speaking and listening skills, but they also include a lot of reflection. So David mentioned we have to look inside ourselves and also challenge our own beliefs. There's a workshop that is specifically based on challenging our own beliefs. We do a lot of work with formulating questions, how to ask a question that's going to elicit a response that will actually focus on the topic that you ask. And we're always trying to, as I said, seek understanding and find common ground. Some of the workshops, the one that's called the Granddaddy is called the Red Blue Workshop, and it requires a balanced number of people who commit to leaning red and commit to leaning blue. They spend an entire day together in very structured and organized ways, going about finding where it is that they agree with one another on important topics. There has usually been, at the end of those workshops, the overwhelming conclusion that we are not so far apart as we have been led to believe we are. So that when individuals can come together and talk to one another civilly, we find that we really do have places that we could move forward from. One workshop is called Depolarizing Within, and that's the one that asks us, sometimes when we're with people who think like we do, we just stoke the fires and hop right on that train and head on down the tracks as fast as possible. What can we do when we're talking with people who are like us in the first place to try to move these things along? There's a workshop called Family and Politics. As David said, lots of families have been torn apart by some of these political issues. One of my cousins has not allowed her son to come to a family gathering in their house for several years because they are so divided politically. That is a sad, sad thing. And so a Families and Politics workshop allows us to work through some ways for healing. All of these workshops are based on the idea, first of all, this is all stuff that should be done in person. It should be done one-on-one. These are not skills to be used on social media. You don't try them out on Twitter or Facebook to start with. Just to sort of review where we go, one of the most important skills that we focus on is paraphrasing, which everybody knows. We know what that means. And whether it's the skills workshop or the Family and Politics, we start off by just practicing talking to another person and repeating back to the person what you heard him or her say. You can use their words, you can use synonyms, but you want to review what that person said, and you can look for some kind of sign that you've got it. They nod, they say, yeah, that is what I meant. Or they tell you, well, no, that's not quite what I meant. Because if we can't talk to one another at that level, we won't go very far. After we've done that experience, then of course, we always go back and reflect. What was that like? How did it feel? How could you have done that better? And ask that goes for both people, not just the one who was being interviewed. And then what's the value of it? Why would we do it anyway? So that's just the way we operate. There are alliance meetings locally. There are national and local debates. Before the pandemic, we hosted one of these debates at the new Tennessee Historical Museum in Nashville. We have book and film discussions. Our own local alliance sponsored a conversation about the 1619 project and the 1776 report. Our blue person led the 1776 introduction, and our red participant led the 1619 introduction and facilitated the conversation in that way. There is an opportunity called Walk a Mile in My News, where you partner up with someone who is of a different political position than yours, and you pledge to read or view one another's news sources for 2 weeks. Not only, you can still take your stuff in too, but you make a commitment to listening and watching where the other person pays his or her, gets his information, and then you compare with one another. What did you learn from that? There are university debates. That is one of the big new features, that these debates are being sponsored on college campuses across the country, and Braver Angels uses the parliamentary style of debate rather than competitive, so that, as a result, after the initial opening rounds, everybody in the room has an opportunity to participate in the debate on that particular focused topic. The Braver Politics is the newest initiative, and that is actively trying to engage some of our politicians in these conversations. So if you want to know any more about it, the main thing to do is go to the website, which of course has been on the bottom of every single one of these slides and is now imprinted in your minds. But spend some time on that website. It has lots and lots of information. You can sign up for a workshop. You can do one locally. You can do one nationally. One of the audience members today, Bob Bullen, is a longtime Braver Angels member and is going to be participating in a Being Bred in a Blue Environment workshop coming up on Zoom in a couple of weeks. You can join. I know it's a pretty hefty fee, but the $12 a year membership gets you access to almost everything on that website. So, thank you very much for your time and attention, and be a Braver Angel.
So I'm gonna, Kalinda, the floor is yours. And Kalinda and I have known each other for a number of years, and we've been promoting civil discourse in our community for a long time, but she has created a program that has gone national. And so tell us a little bit about the Great Reset.
Wonderful. Well, that was incredible. I'm in amazing company, by the way, with both of you, and I'm so appreciative of what both of you do to increase our ways of connecting to one another. Because for us, it's about connecting through conversation to build our communities. And for any of you who know me, I love Franklin. I've lived here 15 years, and I come from a village not unlike Franklin, and I love it. I call it the village, and it is my community. And it's important to me for all of us to feel connected. And we have been finding that through conversation, we can get there, which is a good thing. So very often it's said, of course, strangers are only friends we have yet to meet. And that's something I grew up with. So that's my way of being. And back in 2018, I was noticing some, for lack of a better word, maybe friction between some people that didn't maybe share perspectives. And I, as a sociologist, was super frustrated with that because I thought, my goodness, if I'm not even having conversations across perspectives, who is? And so I invited people to join me around my dining room table. My day job is consumer and market research. I have Advocate Market Research Bureau. We do a lot of work with banking and healthcare and not-for-profits. And more often than not, my clients pull me in when they are not able to communicate with the other, with the person across the table from them, be it their patients or their doctors or their clients or whomever. So I've been having these difficult conversations for as long as I've had my company. And so I thought, well, maybe it's time I do that in my community. And so I called together people around my dining room table. And at that time, I was still on Facebook. I'm not anymore, by the way. I was still on Facebook. Through LinkedIn, through sort of my professional networking, I reached out and I said, come and join me. Let's have a conversation and see where it goes. And so, not unlike what Ron was saying, where, walk a mile in another's news, I thought that was great because the very first topic we had was, what informs your perspectives? Where do you go to gather information? Because at that point, it was very strong. You were either Fox or you were CNN or whatever the case may be. You were PBS or you were other. So anyway, it was fun to kind of say, let's start there. Let's have a conversation so we understand where you get your news, where I get my news, where you get your news. And then we come to realize that's what informs our perspectives. And that's what sort of fills the vessel that we then kind of give forth our perspectives from. So all that to say, we had that conversation back in 2018, and it has continued from there. So I'm going to share a little video clip because after this first conversation, which I thought was going to be a conversation, by the way, I have a day job, I have a husband, I've got some lovely children, I have plenty to do. The people around my table said, after many months of having these conversations now, we need to do more. And I thought we were doing it. I thought we were having conversations, and this is good. They're like, no, people need to know what we're doing. And so at that point, someone had in with Channel 5 News, and this is what came of it. So I was incredibly fortunate that they did that story, and I think they captured it really beautifully because not unlike what you do with Braver Angels is we really try and put people in a situation where they can hone their skills of having these conversations. Because I am confident, as I know both of you are as well, that we can do this. We see it firsthand. I know that a lot of you participate in conversations not unlike this. So it gives me a phenomenal amount of hope that we are headed in the right direction. So you'll see our mission basically is to build community, as I said, through conversation. And we truly do welcome all of you to join. We have these conversations once a month. The pandemic actually served us well in this way in that we went from just having conversations across the country to having them across the globe. When these conversations started in my dining room, I then thought, everyone kind of pushed me a little bit along the way. None of this was planned, by the way. None of the future of the Great Reset is planned either, so I don't know where it's going, which is really kind of fun. But it's funny because when I started these conversations, I was thinking, well, maybe we could train other people to have these across the country, and people can have these in their communities, and wouldn't that be a great idea? And so we started that. We set up a way to teach people across the country, and we had about a half a dozen people across the country, out in Seattle, out in Chicago, New York City, et cetera, having these conversations. After this conversation, we continued to build on that, and we trained more people to have these conversations. And now we are across the globe. Because of the pandemic, we went online with everything. So it didn't just have to be at somebody's dining room table or someone's local coffee house. We went global. So we had these conversations not just within our country, but across the globe with other people. So we're now in about half the states in the US and about 10 countries across the globe having these conversations. So it's been quite a journey, to say the least. Our online way of connecting directly with the Great Reset is we have monthly conversations. We've got one coming up tomorrow, which is actually on Christian nationalism is the topic tomorrow. Like it said, we do not veer away from the difficult topics. Those are the ones we talk about because everybody needs to have space to share their thoughts on that. And not only share their thoughts, but hear that other person's thoughts as well. So we understand, to your point, what is that, not the commonalities, but what's that little kernel that we can hold on to and kind of start a conversation with something that we can agree upon. And we're going to find at the end of the day, like you said, we're much more alike than we are different. So you just keep looking for those kernels. Other than once a month having conversations, once a quarter our participants across the globe meet up and have conversations, and those are always incredible. We've had people from Colombia and Kenya and Scotland and Ireland and the UK, having these conversations with us. And those are intriguing to sit in on. And people in the US as well as people across the globe are in those conversations. So it gives you a great way of realizing it's not just our country that's sometimes having these difficulties, it's elsewhere as well, and how are they getting through them? And once again, it gives you hope that we can get there. We can move past whatever difficulties we may think we're having, because at the end of the day, we are a community, and being together and understanding one another is really a great way to push forward. Once a year, we also offer a deep dive conversation. We've had this in the past with issues on racism and issues on immigration. We have conversations that need more than just a conversation, more than just an hour and a half to hear somebody else's perspectives, but takes a little time to kind of peel back the onion. So once a year, we offer these deep dive conversations about much more difficult, much more complex issues. Along the way, we've also had an opportunity to partner with different organizations, different faith-based organizations or community organizations or different universities that are also wanting to have these conversations and build their own communities. And that's been a fantastic, fantastic next step of the Great Reset. You had mentioned before safe spaces, David, and we like to call them gray spaces. And we call them gray spaces because there's so much nuance to any conversation, any topic, that it's very hard to sometimes say there's sort of a black and a white to any topic. And so we like to call it a gray space. It affords the opportunity for a lot of nuance, because just because someone is one way doesn't mean their perspective is going to align. So you've got to kind of show people grace in that space and understand that there's a lot more to a person than just one way of being or one ideology or one forward-facing, characteristic, if you will. So we call it gray space, and it gives people a lot of space to just sort of sit in that space, peel back the onion, and come to learn who we are, person to person, really getting to our soul humanity, which we find is a really wonderful place to be. You'll see here, this is just a list of topics. You'll see the list is quite extensive. We've got about 50 or so now topics, and we add more every month. For example, coming up in 2023, we've got Christian nationalism, we've got gender expectations and reality, we've got guns in America, conservation and climate change, the shrinking middle class and affordable housing, education expectations and reality, and education and affordability. We are currently scheduled through July 2023. Our online format is a real intimate format, so if you want to be a part of it, I encourage you to register and do the pre-work and make sure your foot's in the door so that you can reserve a space in any of those conversations. We usually cap it around 12. When it's a really big topic, we'll have multiple moderators and break into different groups online, which is great. But it's, like I said, it's been this incredible journey that was never intended to be. It started out of my frustration that I wasn't having deep enough conversations. So I welcome all of you to come and have a conversation and get to know your neighbor. And at the end of the day, you're going to find it's a great way to build our community. So on that note, I thank you all. We can be reached directly at hello@thegreatreset.org. or find us at thegreatreset.org. And it's kind of funny because I didn't realize, Ron, that you were not originally Braver Angels, that you were Better Angels, and there was an issue with the name. So the Great Reset, I don't know if anyone else knows any other Great Resets, but there's also a Great Reset with the World Economic Forum. And there's some pushback by some people that don't like what the World Economic Forum is doing. All this to say, the only reason I know this is because someone came at me with a lot of choice words, saying some things to me. So I had to do my
Not civilly, right? Yeah.
So I had to do my research to figure out what is it about this other Great Reset that people are pushing back on. Well, I, unlike you, was a little more stubborn. I'm like, well, but we had the name first, and it's a really good name. And so we've chosen to keep it at this point. We're going to see. We worked through a lot of the big pushback, so we'll see where it goes from here. But we believe it's a time to just sort of pause and to reset. So it's the Great Reset. So
Thank you so much.
thank you for what you do. I've been meaning
Many of you participated with us a few years ago in our program called On the Table, where we brought together over 1,000 people in a variety of conversations across our community to talk about what was important to them, what engaged citizens, the impact engaged citizens can have, and then also to look forward to bringing people together. We are looking at that process again for this year in a different way. But one of the other things that we are going to do this year is, so tomorrow you should receive a link, an email. Sometime this week you'll receive a link to all these organizations and hopefully to the video to watch this or share it with your friends on YouTube. And then before the end of the month, we will schedule a Zoom conversation where you can have the chance we can discuss this more fully. That's one of the limitations of Frank Talks, is that we try to keep it to an hour and 15 minutes, which doesn't allow a great deal of time for us to discuss or have interaction. And so we're looking at ways to do that. That will be a Zoom event. That follow-up event will be a Zoom event, and we're looking at doing that for both Frank Talks and Breakfast with the Mayors. So it's an opportunity for us to have a more fully realized discussion with each other via Zoom, and I think we've all learned how to use it. If not, we'll host a bunch of people in our office and have a Zoom discussion for everybody who's out there. We'll try to make that work, but we want to really put forth the idea of civil discourse again in our community as we emerge from the pandemic and come together more frequently. So we appreciate your being here today. Don't forget, get that historic Franklin license plate. And if you've enjoyed today's event, we would encourage you to support Franklin Tomorrow via our dip jar or online contribution. Many of you are aware of the Coach Jimmy Gentry Statue Fund, which will also honor lost veterans, those killed who never came home, the true, as Coach Gentry would have said, the true heroes of our community. And there's a new statue going in at Fifth Avenue and Main Street. Franklin Tomorrow is working with the organization to allow those donations to be tax deductible. And we have some exciting news that we hope to be able to announce later this month, but we're still soliciting those donations and encouraging people to support both this statue, but also the idea of public art in our community. So we're excited about that. Upcoming events, January 16th is the MLK Parade and March Downtown. January 28th and 29th is Backlight Productions. Take those folders in the center of the table. And then Breakfast with the Mayors will be January 31st at Rolling Hills Community Church. And Mayor Ken Moore and Williams County Mayor Rogers Anderson have the stage on the 31st. They wanted the stage, and it is Breakfast with the Mayors after all, so it seems like a good idea to do that. So that'll start at 7 a.m. on January 31st, and we'll be releasing the registration for that this week. It is, of course, free as well, so we appreciate that. And I think it'll give us something to talk about after January 31st. So we are excited. And then our February Frank Talks, we believe, will be at the Presbyterian Church on Franklin Road at Machatcher. And we have invited our new 2 state representatives, Gino Bulso and Jack McCallman, who have agreed to come and kind of get to know the community, and we get to know them. And it'll be an opportunity for them to talk about their priorities and learn about these 2 new representatives in the Franklin area. So thanks so much. We look forward to seeing you at Breakfast with the Mayors or next month at Frank Talks. Have a great day. Go out and make it a great day.